Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. I want to get free food. I know the boss personally. I think you guessed who our first story's about. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You think you know my boss? Okay. Some context before I start. I work in a Japanese restaurant as a cashier. My job's simple. I take your order, I tell the kitchen, give you your change and/or receipt, then give you your food. Here it goes. One night shift, I was busy shuffling left and right, organizing orders, and calling them out to customers. I was also keeping track of online orders, labeling them, and handing them to the right assigned delivery driver. This isn't a fancy restaurant, sit-down restaurant. It's more akin to a fast food joint, fairly cheap and real filling. Enter Karen, aka Crazy Bee. She comes in wearing some overly expensive name brand items. We're talking Louis Vuitton handbags, Gucci sunglasses, and a bunch of other fancy clothing. She looks like the kind of person you'd see with the housewives of whatever county/city. She's got the extra large Starbucks coffee that's got a dozen toppings and extras like whipped cream and chocolate syrup. Only thing missing was a tiny loud dog that you could punt like a football. But the point is, this is some fairly well-off lady, I think. Me. Welcome. CB. Okay, can I get some rice and some curry? Me. Sure. How much rice and curry do you want? Also, will you be taking it to stay or go? CB. I'll just take a small and some shrimp tempura. Me. Okay, with tax altogether, it's $10.94. CB. I'll take it for free, thank you. Me. Pardon me? CB. I said I'm not paying for it. I want it for free. Me. Yeah, I can't do that. CB. Excuse me? Just give me my order. Me. Sorry, but you'll have to pay for it. CB. I know your boss. Your boss is letting me have the food for free. I'm ordering, you give it to me. The attitude she gave me rang up red flags everywhere. We've given out freebies for important people, business associates, and to certain extended family members. Most of the time, my boss and the general manager will tell the employees about it beforehand. They'll either tell us in person or send us a text to be on the lookout for Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. Important Business Person. I decided to act like a real derp and just play along for a bit. Me. You know my boss? CB. Yes, I do. His name is Tashi. I'll call him right now and tell him how you're a bad worker and get you fired for not doing your job. Me. Tashi? You know some person named Tashi? CB. Yes. Tashi said I can have whatever I want here. I don't have a boss named Tashi. My boss is a woman. And nowhere close to the name Tashi. She may have overheard the name of someone important in the restaurant, but probably misheard. Me. Sorry, never heard of him. Are you talking about Takahashi? CB. Yes, Takashi. That's not a typo. She mispronounced the name after I said it. He said I can have free rice and tempura. It was at this point I caught her and her BS. Me. Yeah, I smiled. I don't have a boss named Tashi, Takahashi, or Takashi. CB just looks at me with her jaws open. I can hear some residual squeak or mild squawking. If a person was a computer, this is when the computer suddenly freezes for a couple of seconds. She takes off her sunglasses violently and starts pointing at me angrily before she's screaming at me. CB, you will be fired. I will make sure your boss knows that you're the worst employee. You'll never work here, you. Me, looking at customer behind her. All right, next customer, step down. Welcome, how can I help you? CB just huffs and leaves the place. All while the customer asks, who the F was that crazy bee? Me, some crazy bee, I don't know. If you can afford some of the most overly expensive anything, then you can afford food. You can't eat Louis Vuitton, Gucci, or Apple AirPods. Imagine this scenario multiple times. Happened more than once to other employees. Absolutely love the way you dealt with her. Made a complete fool of her. And our second story. New owner wants us to carry garbage bags through a crowded restaurant. Okay, you're the boss. This is another story about my bartending days, and I'll preface by saying even though it got my point across, not then, nor do I now feel good about what happened here. So slight backstory. I was working as a bar manager in a student pub. The new owner and I hated each other. It was actually scary just how deep that hatred ran. However, I was his fastest bartender and simply too popular among the other employees to just fire. So instead, he would always belittle me in front of clients or other staff members and find ways to make my job more insufferable. I'm guessing in hopes that I would simply quit. So the bar was at the front of the store. The exit was right by the front entrances, which led through a caged-off alley, which led to the alley where we dumped all the garbage from the bar and restaurant. We had always carried the refuse out that way. It was easy, effective, and we didn't have to walk through the restaurant carrying garbage bags, so obviously the new owner made the rational decision to start locking that way off and forbidding us from using it. That meant we now had to walk through the restaurant where people were eating, up a mini stairwell, and through the kitchen. I don't even know how many health and safety regulations this was violating. I had protested this at several staff meetings, explaining to him that us not being allowed to go that way doubled the trip, which left the bar a man short for double the time. It was also double the time for the bags to tear, considering they were usually filled with heavy and sometimes broken bottles, and mostly it was just unsanitary walking through the restaurant and kitchen with bags that were usually dripping fluids. So obviously he refused and said we'll continue doing it his way. Cut forward a few nights later, and the place was packed, likely to overcapacity. But in case it wasn't clear, safety concerns weren't much of a priority for this twat. I should also point out that the bar only had one garbage bin, which had filled up several beer bottles ago. The other bartenders had been ignoring it, because if you're carrying out garbage bags, you're not serving customers. And if you're not serving customers, you're not making tips. So I decided to take this task upon myself and venture out of the bar. I felt like Frodo carrying the ring to Mordor. As I mentioned, the bag was already over its recommended weight capacity, so I had to get through this crowd fast because I could feel it was going to tear quickly. Some of the glass had broken inside the bag too, and it started cutting into me as I tried carrying the bag from the bottom to keep it from tearing open, all the while fighting my way through a crowd of drunk students. I finally made it to the mini stairwell by the kitchen where the drunk owner and a random drunk girl were sitting on the stairs. The bag was now super close to tearing, and my hands were covered in blood from getting cut by the glass. I tried getting the stupid boss's attention, begging him to move so I could get past. The boss ignored me. I'll say that the first time it was entirely possible that he may not have heard me over the crowd, the loud music. So I tried again. This time he looked straight at me, then continued to ignore me anyway. Cue the malicious compliance as I lifted the bag over him and the girl just for it to tear open right above them, drowning them both in dripping bottles of beer and pieces of shattered glass. I felt bad for the girl. She didn't deserve this. As for the owner, screw him. The kitchen staff heard the crash and screams and ran out to clean the mess. I tried helping, but they told me to go back to the bar. A few seconds later, the owner came storming into the bar, screaming at me and asking me what possessed me to try and lift a garbage bag over the head of him and a customer. I innocently said that I wouldn't have had to if he'd just let us go through the alley. The owner gave me the biggest death glare I've ever gotten, then took the alley key off his key ring, threw it at me, and stormed out of the bar. So even though I'd been forced to cover a girl in glass to get my point across, I still walked out of this battle victorious. Just to add, this happened back in 2008, and I haven't bartended since 2009. I just enjoy recalling these stories because of how absurd that place was. But unfortunately, I won't be able to use any of the advice anymore on how I could rectify this. For those of you upset about me endangering the girl, I think I literally said that in the first sentence of the story that I felt bad about it, and I still do to this day. But she wasn't injured, neither was my stupid boss, unfortunately. And this was 12 years ago. I was barely older than 19, and we all did things in our younger years that we weren't proud of. Lastly, it actually just annoys me that I have to add this, but I'm not from the U.S. The legal drinking age in my country is 18, not 21. Therefore, I was legally allowed to serve alcohol before turning 21. And our last story. Harassing your ex-employee? Enjoy losing your job and potentially some prison time. Obligatory, not my story. I was only loosely involved. This mainly involves my girlfriend. She worked in a small retail store in our town selling stationery and artsy bits. She didn't like her manager because he was lazy, always on his phone, and spent a lot of time hiding in his office. 6 months ago, she found a new job away from our town, handed in her notice, trained someone to take her place, All was well. She kept in contact with the staff as they were all friendly. However, 2 months ago, her manager started messaging her. Friendly stuff at first, but she soon found out he was going through a divorce. Over the next week, he messaged her constantly, becoming increasingly less subtle about inviting her around to his place. She dodged at first, but eventually she confronted him and he backed off. Temporarily. A few days later, she receives the very smooth text, "So when are you coming round to have sex with me?" Immediately, she blocked him and told me everything that had been going on. I talked her into raising the issue with HR at her old workplace. I printed off all the relevant messages between them, while she arranged a coffee with her old colleagues to let them know she was speaking out against him. We sent copies of everything to HR, keeping copies for ourselves in case it escalated to court. Everything was quiet until yesterday. We received news through her old colleagues that her ex-manager had been fired from his job. When HR conducted an investigation, they found out that he had not only been harassing several female ex-employees, but he had also been stealing from the company, skimming small amounts from the safe, and shoplifting stuff from his own shop, manipulating the stocks to cover his tracks. The company is now looking to recoup their losses from the ex-manager, and 2 of the girls have come forward with harassment suits against him. My girlfriend's going to join them. According to one of her ex-colleagues, HR estimates a couple £1,000 worth of stock has been stolen, so we're all hoping he gets thrown in prison. His ex-wife is kicking him out. He's the talk of the town and certainly won't find any retail work in our area ever again, all over a few lewd messages. Sadly, there are too many people that get away with this behavior. Kudos on getting her to speak up. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.